This morning, U.S. officials and embassy staff continue to rush out of Afghanistan.
And American troops are providing security for those people at the airport in Kabul. Meanwhile, this is the scene yesterday that really speaks to the chaos in Afghanistan. Tens of thousands of Afghans you saw there flooding the tarmac at the airport, desperate to escape. Yesterday, President Biden publicly defended his decision to pull U.S. troops from the region, and he also blamed Afghan security forces for the collapse. Republicans, meanwhile, argue that the Biden administration had no plan in place for the Americans who were still on the ground in Afghanistan.
It is wrong to order American troops to step up when Afghanistan's own armed forces would not.
He has to take responsibility and accountability for his own actions, which have led to this unmitigated disaster, as I called it, of epic proportions. It is an absolute disaster.
The president says as many as 6,000 U.S. soldiers will stay in Afghanistan until evacuations there are through. And as that situation continues to develop in the Middle East, some families here in the Portland area with ties to Afghanistan watch and worry. Devin Haskins brings us their story.
Very few.
Abdul Ghaffar Jabarkil and his brother Abdul Qadir live in the Portland area, but grew up in Afghanistan. They worry about the one older brother still living there.
We are in general not for only his safety, but for the safety of the whole people.
Jabarkil is very concerned about the Taliban taking control of almost all of Afghanistan, including the capital city.
I don't consider it good because they first didn't make a good government or any good system.
The Taliban, estimated to be over 200,000 strong, has a history of murder, harboring terrorists, and suppressing women's rights. After 20 years of progress, Afghan women could lose basic rights once again.
But mostly they say no, Taliban, they will have their own way of extreme things, and they will not allow women to do education and work in offices.
What is going on in Afghanistan is absolutely horrific.
Senator Ron Wyden talked with us Monday morning. He sits on the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence.
The situation now is very difficult. It's about getting help so that people can get to safety. That's the agenda. And a lot of those people were people who were there for American forces over the years.
In his address to the nation, President Biden doubled down on his decision to pull out U.S. troops, a decision former President Trump put into motion. The president and Senator Wyden said in separate remarks they don't agree with sending more troops to continue fighting.
For Oregonians who've talked to me, they don't want to see their sons and daughters go back into Afghanistan, and I sure agree with them.
Jabarkil says the U.S. withdrawal was needed, but says it could have been handled differently.
In my opinion, they did it just in a way they wanted, but not in a way that was good for Afghans.
Devin Haskins, KGW News.
Let's get to three things to know about coronavirus this morning. Number one, the Oregon Health Authority has approved a third dose of the COVID vaccine for people with compromised immune systems. The FDA approved a third shot last week for immunocompromised people, but over the weekend, most providers in Oregon weren't able to give them out because they didn't have clearance from the Oregon Health Authority. Now they do. Number two, Harvard researchers have found wildfire smoke can increase your COVID risk. It affects your lungs. They looked at COVID cases in California, Washington, and Oregon last year and found a spike in severe COVID and deaths in many counties about 4 weeks after wildfires affected those areas. About 17% of total cases in Whitman, Washington, for example, were linked to high levels of air pollution on wildfire days. And number three, the Portland Winterhawks have made COVID vaccinations mandatory for all team personnel. Everyone must be fully vaccinated at least 14 days before the season opener on October 1st. That includes officials and anyone who interacts directly with the players. And those are your three things to know right now.
Here's another COVID story with local ties. COVID, we know, continues to hit the restaurant industry hard. So the latest setback for local restaurant owners is a shortage of supplies. Service suppliers have slowed down operations because of COVID outbreaks and labor shortages. In order to stay afloat, many restaurant owners are now buying their supplies from grocery stores like the rest of us. But now those shelves are starting to run dry. Lisa Schroeder is the owner and chef of Mother's Bistro. She says she's worried about not having enough inventory to sell.
Our orders are being postponed or not delivered at all, and we're being told last minute that we can't get the orders that we had made. So then we have to scramble and find other sources for food.
Schroeder thinks the supply shortage problem for restaurants will continue to take its toll on grocery stores too.
All right, some sports news now. Olympic athlete Micah Williams returned to Portland last night. He has spent the last month or so in Tokyo for the Summer Olympics. Williams went to Portland's Benson High School. He runs track at the U of O, where he's now headed into his sophomore year. He qualified for the Olympics in Eugene, finishing 5th in the 100-meter dash, setting a personal best and school record with a time of just 9.91 seconds. Williams made the relay team, but they didn't race in Tokyo. The men's relay team got knocked out before the final. Williams says it's motivation to keep working.
Yeah, it definitely inspires me to go harder, to not make a relay team, but to make the top 3 mark, or even first, or make anything or a top 3, so I have an individual event. So even making it made me go harder. So it's just another moment in my life to keep moving forward and keep going.
A crowd of people greeted Williams as he got off the plane. He says he's taken some time off over the next few weeks to relax and spend time with friends and family before school starts.
All right, one more story here before we get back to Rod Hill. A big change coming to Forest Park. Starting today, the Lower McClay Trail will be closed through December. So this is from the trailhead at Northwest Upshur Street and 30th Avenue to the intersection with the Wildwood Trail near the Stone House. A lot of people call that the Witch's Castle, right? I saw that for the first time actually last fall with my kids. Anyways, Environmental Services is replacing a very deteriorated trash rack in the Lower McClay Park. Trash rack. Crews will need the trail to move materials and equipment for that work. So again, this closure goes through the end of the year, and the city says you should follow the signs, stay out of construction areas. That applies to you as well, Rodney Hill.